As a Japanese housewife living in the US, I want to look at the counterfacts of socialization from unique perspectives.
Ever taken a test that felt like it would decide your entire future? The kind that makes your palms sweat and your heart race. Yeah, those are high-stakes tests, and for decades they've been sold to us as the ultimate tool for accountability in education. The idea is simple. If we test students, teachers, and schools, we can measure performance, identify problems, and drive improvement. It's supposed to make our education system better, fairer, and more effective. But what if I told you that this obsession with testing, this very tool we use for accountability, is actually making our schools less accountable? That's the high-stakes testing accountability paradox, and today we're going to unpack it. So, let's start with the promise. Back in the day, the argument was that without standardized tests, we had no objective way to know if schools were doing their jobs. How could we tell if students in one state were getting as good an education as students in another? How could we ensure that kids from disadvantaged backgrounds weren't being left behind? High-stakes tests were the answer. They were meant to be a flashlight, shining a bright, objective light into every classroom, holding everyone from the superintendent down to the individual teacher accountable for results. This led to landmark policies like No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top. The logic was clear. Tie funding, teacher evaluations, and even school closures to test scores, and everyone would be motivated to perform better. And on the surface, it seems logical, right? What gets measured gets managed. But here's where the paradox starts to creep in. When the stakes become incredibly high, human nature takes over. Instead of using tests as a diagnostic tool to improve overall learning, the goal shifts. The new goal becomes simply to raise test scores. This phenomenon is often called teaching to the test, but it's more complex than it sounds. It's not just about practicing multiple-choice questions. It's a systemic shift in what education itself means. First, let's talk about the curriculum. When a single test determines so much, what do you think gets taught? Exactly what's on the test. Subjects that aren't tested, like art, music, social studies, and even physical education, get pushed to the side. The rich, colorful tapestry of a well-rounded education gets bleached into a black and white worksheet. I remember talking to a teacher who told me she used to have a brilliant unit on civics, where students would run a mock city council. It was engaging, taught critical thinking, negotiation, and public speaking. But did it raise reading and math scores on the state test? Not directly. So it got cut. The school needed that time for more test prep. This is what's known as curriculum narrowing. We end up with students who are experts at filling in bubbles on a Scantron, but may have never analyzed a piece of art, debated a historical event, or learned how local government works. Is that real accountability? Are we holding schools accountable for a deep, meaningful education, or just for their ability to game a test? Next, let's look at what happens inside the classroom to the teaching itself. The pressure to raise scores often discourages creativity and innovation. Why risk trying a new project-based learning approach when the tried and true method of drill and kill worksheets has a more predictable, albeit shallow, impact on test results. Teachers who are passionate, innovative educators are often forced to become test prep technicians. This focus on lower-order thinking skills like memorization and recall comes at the expense of higher skills like critical thinking, problem-solving, and collaboration. These are the very skills that experts say are crucial for success in the 21st century economy. So, in our quest for accountability through testing, we are ironically making our students less prepared for the future. The test becomes the master, not the servant, of education. And this brings us to the most damaging part of the paradox. The illusion of accountability. When a school's test scores go up, politicians and administrators can declare victory. See, our policies are working. The schools are more accountable, but are they? What if those scores went up not because students are learning more, but because they've gotten better at taking tests? Or worse, what if the increase is due to strategic and sometimes unethical behavior? We've seen stories of schools pushing low-performing students out before test day. We've heard of districts being investigated for erasure analysis, where an unusual number of wrong to right answers have been changed. These are extreme examples, but they stem from the same root cause: immense pressure to produce a number at any cost. This isn't accountability, it's a performance. It's accountability theater. We're remeasuring the success of the system with a metric that the system has been perfectly optimized to manipulate. The paradox, in essence, is this: the more we use high-stakes tests as the primary lever for accountability, the more we corrupt the very thing we are trying to measure. The focus shifts from genuine learning to score inflation. We get data, yes, but that data becomes less and less meaningful as a reflection of actual educational quality. The flashlight we thought we were using to illuminate the system is actually casting long, distorting shadows. We're holding schools accountable for a narrow, distorted version of success, while true accountability for fostering curiosity, critical thought, and well-rounded human beings slips through our fingers. So, what's the alternative? Do we just scrap all tests and hope for the best? Of course, not. That would be swinging the pendulum too far in the other direction. Assessment is a vital part of good teaching. The key is to move away from a single high-stakes system to what's called a multiple measures approach. Imagine a system where accountability is a dashboard, not a single gauge. One dial might be a low-stakes, standardized test designed to measure foundational skills, suits for diagnostics, not punishment, but other dials would measure different things. We could use portfolio assessments where students compile their best work over a year. Projects, lab reports, artistic creations. This shows growth over time and showcases skills that a multiple-choice test could never capture. We could also incorporate school quality reviews, where trained educators visit schools and conduct observations, interviews with students, teachers, and parents. Much like a restaurant review or a quality inspection in other professional fields, this provides rich qualitative data to complement the quantitative test scores. We could look at things like graduation rates, student and teacher attendance, participation in extracurriculars, and post-graduation success in college or careers. The goal is to build a more holistic, three-dimensional picture of what a school is actually achieving. This approach creates a more robust and authentic form of accountability. It makes it harder to game the system because you're not just aiming for one target. You're aiming for genuine, well-rounded school improvement. It holds the system accountable for the things we actually value. Not just test scores, but creativity, critical thinking, student well-being, and a love of learning. The journey away from the high-stakes testing paradox won't be easy. It requires a fundamental shift in how we think about success and accountability in education. It means trusting our teachers as professionals, valuing a broad curriculum, and recognizing that the most important outcomes of education can't always be neatly bubbled in on a test sheet. But by acknowledging the paradox, we can start to build a system that is truly accountable, one that ensures every child has the opportunity to receive a rich, meaningful, and genuinely empowering education, the one they deserve. Thanks so much for watching. What are your own experiences with high-stakes testing? Do you think they create accountability or just pressure? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video insightful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the big ideas shaping our world. See you next time.